Bienvenidos a esta presentación del participio pasado. This presentation will talk about the past participles, how to form them in Spanish, and we'll practice using them as an adjective with the verb estar. In English, the words eaten, bored, cleaned, and closed are examples of past participles. Notice that bored, cleaned, and closed all end in ed. There are irregulars in English, such as eaten, that do not end in ed. In Spanish, the past participles are used in primarily three situations. One of these situations is to use the past participle with the verb haber to form the perfect tenses. Yo he hecho mi tarea is an example of the present perfect tense. This means I have done my homework. Nosotros habíamos llamado cuando tú llegaste is an example of the pluperfect, and that means that we had called when you arrived. The past participle can be used with the verb ser to form the passive voice. El dormitorio fue limpiado por la recamarera, and that means that the room was cleaned by the maid. A very common use, and one that you've probably used without knowing it, is with the verb estar, and when it's used with the verb estar, it is used as an adjective. La mesa está puesta. The table is set. Los problemas están solucionados. The problems are solved. So how do we form the past participle? For AR verbs, we simply add the ending ado to the stem of the verb. And the way to get the stem of the verb is to simply take off the AR ending. Comprar becomes comprado. For ER and IR verbs, it's the same process, but rather than add ado, we add ido, IDO. Tener becomes tenido. Salir becomes salido. This group of verbs isn't quite irregular, but it does have a change that you need to know about. When we have a verb whose stem ends in a strong vowel, and we add the IDO, and this is specific to ER and IR verbs, we need to add an accent mark to the I. Without the accent mark, caído would be pronounced caído. We need to help the weak vowel out in this situation, which is the I, and we need to help it out with an accent mark. So now it is pronounced properly caído. Some other examples of these types of verbs are this group of regulars ends in TO. This doesn't follow the pattern of taking off the ending and adding a new ending. These simply need to be memorized. Abrir is abierto. Cubrir, which means to cover, is cubierto. Some others that you'll come across. You may be familiar with muerto to describe someone as being dead. You may have seen that in literature you've read. Muerto is the past participle of morir. And the last group of irregulars end in CHO, and there's only two that you need to worry about. Decir is dicho, and hacer becomes hecho. So again, these aren't decido and ha sido, it's dicho and hecho. Practiquemos. So we're going to practice the past participle as an adjective, using it with estar. Again, there are other uses, the perfect tenses and the passive voice, but for our purposes, we are going to practice it with the verb estar. This first example you've probably been saying in Spanish since you first started studying. If you've ever said that you are bored, you've already been using the past participle. The class is bored. La clase es aburrida. Please note, that aburrida ends in an A because it is an adjective describing la clase, a feminine singular object. When using the participles with estar, they need to agree in number and gender with the nouns that they modify. My parents are dressed. Mis padres están vestidos. The bed is made. La cama está hecha. The books are read. Los libros están leídos. I am tired, and if I refers to a female, if she is speaking about herself, yo estoy cansada. The window is broken. Romper is one of our irregular verbs. La ventana está rota. The door is opened. La puerta está abierta. And finally, the lights are turned on. Las luces están encendidas. Gracias por ver esta presentación y te deseo mucho éxito.